And yeah, we're going to start with some introductions. So as you can imagine, it's very important to start with the ladies. So please, Samantha, would you mind telling us about yourself and, well, about what do you do at Neo
Yeah,
Financial?
of course. So hi everybody, I'm Sam. I'm the manager of design operations at Neo. My job really is working internally with our user experience team, which is made up of design, research, and UX writing, and really just kind of improving the ways that they work with each other, so the way that they kind of collaborate internally, but also with teams like product management and engineering, which is super important for what we do. And I also oversee a number of interdisciplinary projects as well. So working really closely with developers on, improving the ways that, they're producing things like our design system, looking into accessibility initiatives, all of that. I joined as a lead product designer at Neo, so kind of, joined really early on, I guess about 3 years ago. So yeah, kind of just, that's my journey at my current workplace. I actually used to work with Chad at ATB for a number of years as well, so worked as a designer there as well. So past few years have kind of been in the finance space and fintech.
Awesome, thank you, Samantha. Thank you for being here. Rodolfo, would you mind to continue?
Yep. Hi, everybody. I'm the head of design at Helcim. We provide payments technologies to our merchants in Canada and the US, and I manage a design team of 20 people. The team stretches across marketing and product. So we have 4 subgroups working inside design, 2 in marketing, digital media, and brand design. And then we have other 2 groups working in product design, which is UI UX essentially, and front-end development. And I essentially bridge the gaps between marketing and design, making sure that the brand is passed across both functions. And I've been working 5 years and a half. Yeah.
5 years and a half.
Yes.
Fantastic. And well, Samantha, did you say how many years you have been in?
Oh, I guess I want to say 6, maybe.
Okay,
Yeah.
wow, excellent, thank you. And Chad, please, would you mind telling us about yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Chad Fournier. I'm the director of product design at ATB. I've been there for 6 years. The team, we work on mostly external-facing projects in our personal banking and business banking space, as well as the sort of prospect channel through .com. Excuse me. I've been in the industry for about 20 years, and as was mentioned, I was one of the co-founders of this group, so it's amazing to see so many people out at this event. The first one that we had was in the basement of the Calgary Library, and I think we had about 5 people show up. So this is a huge turnaround since those days in 2009, I think it was. So great to be here, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming, Chad. And well, sometimes we have 5 people too at the basement of the Calgary Library, so yeah, we have some progress sometimes. But yeah, so glad to have you all here, and I think one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to give some of the context to understand, well, how things are at each one of your companies, right? So maybe now that, well, we continue with Chad, would you like telling us the structure of the company and where your group or team is located?
Yeah, sure. So right now, we just had a reorg. We've done a lot of reorgs, but we have a department called the Customer Experience and Technology team, and the Product Design team, which is our label, but it's really user experience, has always been in that team and partnered very closely with product and development. And then our marketing friends are in a different department, but we collaborate with them all the time. What was the second? Was that?
Oh, well, kind of like that. Where are you located? Like reporting positions?
Okay. So yeah, I guess important positions. Most of my team, which is a team of 25 people, are product designers, so they're working on various portfolios of work. We also have 3 writers. UX writers are very specific to supporting our team. And then we also have our user experience research team that we're partnered up with, as well as service and behavior design team, and then, like I said, with our product team and our development team.
Thank you so much. Samantha, would you like to continue? Similar question?
Yeah, of course. So the user experience team, I guess, like I said before, is made up of our 3 pillars: research, design, and writing. UX actually sits under the broader umbrella of product and technology. So that whole group is made up of engineering, front end, back end, all of that, product management, as well as the user experience group. So we kind of sit within that pillar of the org. So teams like marketing, brand, all of that stuff, that is a separate side of the business that we work with very often. I would say, like our writers work with them a lot, kind of making sure that we have a very cohesive language. Designers collaborate with our creative team quite often as well. So pretty similar to kind of what Chad was describing over at ATB. And then our team right now is about 21 people, I want to say. So when I first joined, we were about 3 people, and we've grown to 21 in the past 3 years, which is awesome. Most of those folks are designers. We have only 1 writer right now. We're trying to grow that team, and then we have a handful of user experience researchers that work on all different types of projects with our designers.
Fantastic, thank you. And Rodolfo, you mentioned some of that during your introduction, but if there is anything that you would like to expand?
Yeah, on the product side, so our teams is like basically formed by a product design team and a front-end development team. Currently, product design is managing the research, the UX research phase, and also the visual design implementation. And then we have the front-end team that is actually implementing whatever product design is building. And that's maybe like a unique aspect of our structure, as front-end development reports to design. The way I see it is like they are ultimately responsible to carry out the final user experience. So no matter how good the solution is, if it's not properly implemented, that can be a problem. So we tend to handle end-to-end like implementation phase from product design to the front-end implementation. So as of today, so we handle these both teams as part of the, let's say, the product development life cycle.
Fantastic, thank you so much, Rodolfo. And it seems like you all are super busy, right? So being a leader, being a manager must be super complicated. Let's start with the amazing things. What do you love the most about your role, Rodolfo?
I think probably the impact. But given by my position in the specific, I can have an impact in marketing and in product when everything that has like a visual output, whether it's like part of our brand efforts, marketing efforts in terms of like creative campaigns or in terms of like products, digital products, the impact is definitely one of the drivers for me. And the fact that I'm constantly building new processes and building structures so that we can get better and better, that for me is very important.
Amazing. Impact and continuous improvement. Excellent. Thank you so much. And well, for you, Chad, what do you love the most about your role?
That's a good, amazing question, really. There's never a dull moment at ATB. Being a small regional financial institution, we compete with a lot of the big 5 financial institutions, but really we can't, we don't. Because we are confined to the borders of Alberta and then competing with these companies that have larger budgets than our whole organization probably just to do what we do. So it presents a unique challenge for us, and I think that's what really gets me out of bed every day is working on a strategy and taking our digital presence and trying to continue to push forward, but knowing that we're competing against these giants out there and trying to do the best we can with what we have. Am I turning too much for the mic? No.
Excellent. Yeah, well, okay, challenges. That's a really difficult thing to think in the morning. Thank you so much. I normally think just about coffee. Samantha, what do you love the most about your role?
Yeah, I mean, I think the two of them covered a lot of things that, I love about my job. So the impact part, definitely agree with Rodolfo, sorry. But I think it's also the influence that user experience has in our organization. So, it's very much valued. So as someone who is kind of leading that team, I'm able to provide input on things like, work that our studio team is putting out there, our product management team and their processes, even engineering. And so that's something that I really love. And the other thing is being able to provide these opportunities for our designers and researchers, writers, to actually see their work out in the world. I think, as a junior designer, sometimes it's kind of difficult to see your work shipped. But I think that's something that's different for our designers. I see that a lot of them actually are putting their work out into the world, into this product that is, scaling really fast and gaining some traction. So that's something that I love, is providing opportunities for people.
Amazing. So putting the spotlight on the team, that's really fantastic. And okay, now let's flip the coin. What are the challenges? What are the difficult parts of your role? Now, if you don't mind, we can start with Samantha.
Yeah, I think the challenges, there's a number of them. So, I think Chad covered wanting to compete with the Big Five. That's something that we obviously struggle with as well. There's all these institutions that have been around for so long. How do you as a fintech kind of compare and live up to that? Especially with us trying to provide, like a full product suite. And then there's also all these other fintechs across the globe that you want to mimic, but you also want to be unique as a brand and a product. So, you're putting a lot of emphasis on your user experience, brand, all of those things. And it can be a lot for our designers to kind of think about all at once with every project that they're building. But yeah, I think that's one of our challenges. The other thing would be scaling the team so fast. So, like I said, we've grown exponentially over the past few years. And I think with that comes, making sure that we're building consistent products, consistent patterns, putting the same quality of work out there into the world. And yeah, that's one of the things that we definitely are keeping an eye on.
Fantastic. And yeah, scaling is not an easy thing to do, and especially if you are in the middle of everything, right?
Yeah.
It's just, another time to breathe. Well, Chad, we know that you love the challenges. Anything else that you would like to expand?
I would echo that for sure, and I think that's going to be a recurring theme, is like scaling is definitely one of our biggest challenges. And related to that is like sort of picking your battles. Where can we have the biggest impact? And so that's a constant challenge for us. There's so much that we can do. It's sort of like with great power comes great responsibility kind of thing. And so figuring out where you can provide the most value for the organization is a challenge, because there really is so much that we can do, and having that focus is important.
Excellent. Great power, responsibility, guys. You heard that first. But thank you so much, Chad. Rodolfo, same question.
Yeah.
Challenges.
So given my position, I'm a little bit in marketing and a little bit in product. One of my challenges is making sure that the brand is kind of like passing across from marketing to product. And to kind of be effective at doing that, we developed a framework we called AED, Attract, Engage, and Delight. So it basically informs how our visual brand should be applied at every phase of the customer journey. And basically, the attract phase is like the early phase. It's mainly social media, advertisements, events, creative campaigns. Colors are more vibrant. The typography is bold. The brand voice is loud. Then the engage phase is when we educate our future merchants, and it's mainly the website. And the like the last phase is like the light phase, which is like definitely about our product. And I see that as like the further sort of layer of user experience that speaks for the company's brands. That and it's not just necessarily visual. It's like about the solution that you are trying to pick for a given problem. Like, does that speaks for the values that you define? Does that stand for what the company stands for. So trying to make sure that these values come across marketing and get into products, and because eventually you want to bring like one cohesive like image to your customers, and the brand to me is that minimum common denominator.
Excellent. Consistency, cohesiveness. Excellent. Thank you so much. And yeah, not stopping at just this is done. Is this delightful? Fantastic. Thank you. And well, can you tell us some of the projects or work that you're doing? Something that you can talk about without really, spilling all the strategy. Rodolfo.
So we are currently going through a major redesign of our merchant platform. We recently released like an integration with zero accounting, and we released the new version of our online checkout. I don't know if you know, Kinjo Sushi is one of our merchants using that, and the new version of our virtual terminal, which is like a way to get paid basically through a virtual terminal, not a real terminal. So like overall, we are trying to improve our user experience, and next year we're going to bring some new products, but I'm not sure if I can talk about that yet.
Stop the recording. No, thank you so much. And well, same question, Samantha, as much as you can tell, it's okay. If there is NDAs signed and you cannot say much.
Yeah, so in terms of us as a company, some of the things that we're currently working on is, of course, building new products. And like I mentioned before, we're trying to build out a product suite that really matches what you would be able to get at a traditional bank. So what I can say is that, we're building out all these different pillars. We have our spending category where you can use, your credit card or your savings account, all of that. But then we're also kind of looking into this borrowing and investing space as well. So, building out different investment tools for people to use, different investment products, looking at the different demographics that we'd be able to serve there. We actually also recently released like our mortgages, or at least we're kind of in the early stages of that product. So really building out that borrow area as well. But I guess internally, like within design, some of the things that we're working on is really better operationalizing our design system. Our design system's been around pretty much from the beginning. So we're a pretty new design team or new company. But one of the first things that we did when we first started building out our design team was build this design system because of, we knew we had to scale very quickly. But now that we're at that point of, it's been around for a while now. How do we improve this? How do we, better educate designers about how to use the different things that we've, developed and designed? How do we better collaborate with engineers on things like that? So that's kind of one thing within UX, and one thing kind of across the entire design discipline, whether it be product design or creative design or studio, is, like Rodolfo mentioned, really that continuity of brand from, marketing all the way through to the end user. So something that we're working on right now is really redefining the brand journey. So what does it look like when you're on a social ad all the way through to, say when you send something, send money to a person, how does that provide delight, or if you get, cash back on your card, what does that look like? What is the visual delight, how are we using language to convey that as well, all across the entire, journey for the customer.
Wow, excellent. So it seems like we have end-to-end work to do and quite a lot of convincing around.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Well, hopefully we can get to see quite a lot of impact there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of design impact that the product design team has. There's a lot of buy-in from all different design teams.
Fantastic. Thank you, Samantha. Chad, similar question. Anything you can share with us?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we have a couple different major programs or portfolios that we work on. The four main ones is, from a digital banking perspective, our personal clients, the banking that they need to do, and then we have a different experience for our business clients. There's also a wealth portfolio in there too, but that's sort of centered around there. And then the other two main portfolios that we work on is like our prospects So we kind of call it atb.com plus, where there's a whole collection of different sites that we use to funnel people into the digital banking ecosystem. And then we also have a team that works on some team member tools, so things that our clients don't necessarily see, but our staff of 5,000 use to support our clients when they're not self-serving.
Wow, excellent. Thank you so much. And in that sense, well, I guess this is a good segue to start thinking about the next question. Is like, how do you position design as something that is not only a prettifier, that is something that brings value and impact, and it's necessary to be treated accordingly? Chad, please. Thank you.
I feel like we have a pretty fortunate situation where our CEO believes in client obsession and that user experience or product design is a differentiator or will be a differentiator for us. So it's a challenge because one of the strengths of our brand is definitely in-person service at the branch. That's kind of what we're known for. And so trying to figure out how to translate that and bring that into a digital world is really our biggest thing. But it's so great to have the buy-in from the top down, because usually you're sort of pushing up like, hey, this is the value, this is what we need to do. And we kind of have the sandwich effect where, yes, our team is there pushing, constantly educating and evangelizing the value of user experience, but we also have our CEO who's championing this and pushing it down on all his leaders to say, we need to do this if we're going to succeed. And so we're pretty fortunate that way.
That's so refreshing to hear that. Thank you so much. Rodolfo, similar question.
Yeah, so similarly, our CEO values a lot user experience and design. I personally believe that nowadays digital products, like, they are expected to function properly. Where you can give an edge is into how they function, into the experience, and that's where, like, you can, like, have a winning product rather than a losing product. We are trying to put a lot of focus on the user experience based on how the teams are structured. Like, front-end development reporting to design is a way to show that sort of importance. To me, it's very also, like, fundamental. So I call it cross-functional advocacy, is how much development, engineering values user experience. So it's easy to think that I go to the engineering team and talk about the importance of user experience, and I can still do it. But in my opinion, is much more effective when that is brought up by engineering managers. And I can do the same. I can do the same thing with my team and bringing up, like, technical constraints, trade-offs, because like, most of the time we cannot get that perfect experience. Everything is a trade-off. So when you have this cross-pollination, it's like, it's just much more effective when, like, a department values the function of the other department. And so you can kind of, like, use that as a means to align, right? So we're trying to do that as much as possible. We're trying to put a lot of focus on user experience. Of course, there's room for improvement, but now, like, it's better to kind of, like, put the right focus on the right things now that we are still, like, we are not very small, but we're going to grow in the future, and it's going to be an investment for the future.
An investment for the future. That's exactly what it is. Fantastic. And Samantha, you mentioned some of the impact, some of the influence that you already have. Anything you would like to expand in?
Yeah, I mean, like, I definitely relate to us working really closely with engineering and kind of championing each other's ideas. But one thing that I will say is that design also has a lot of influence kind of on the business and strategy side as well. So a lot of the times, or at least now, I'm seeing more and more that we're included in conversations about how do we approach, this entire strategy for, multiple products, not just not like a brief, but information is already passed down to us, and we're kind of already building something that has been crafted by someone else. We're actually kind of at the table crafting that idea with them as well. So that's one thing that I think is very valuable. You know, product design was one of the first teams that we ever built out. So UX is very much valued at our company. I'm pretty sure our second employee was a product designer. So yeah, from the beginning, UX has kind of been a focus for us because really the product is the company and the company is the product, us being a fintech. So yeah, it's a huge point of emphasis.
Fantastic. I love the product is the company is the product. Wow. Okay, that's a really good sentence right there. And well, you also mentioned some of the different partners that you have. Would you like telling us how collaboration looks like inside NEO?
Yeah, so different partners as in different teams.
Different teams, different collaborators.
Right. Yeah, so within engineering, you know, I would say that I find that a lot of the engineers actually champion user experience. So very similar to what Rodolfo said, like the engineers are teaching, you know, their peers about user experience. How does UX affect the work that they do? How do they affect the user experience for the end user of our product as well? And then, you know, I guess on the design side, also making sure that we're bringing their ideas and kind of their discipline forward and teaching our more like intermediate junior designers about stuff like that too. But I would say, you know, on the business side, you know, a lot of the times you think about just strategy teams or, you know, like corporate development and all of that. Another piece of our like business side, I would say, is marketing. So that's a team that we actually work very heavily with, you know, talking about marketing strategies, how does that actually affect the user experience and vice versa. But then with that also comes with bringing in a whole bunch of other teams too, right? Like creative. So it's kind of like a whole round table or kind of council of leaders and teams from all across the org to kind of discuss these different strategic initiatives.
Fantastic. So round table and you have a seat. That's excellent. Chad, similar question. How collaboration looks like at ATV?
Yeah, very similar. We have little squads and boxes where there's always a product manager, a product designer, and the developer that's there. And we're traveling in those packs kind of thing. And then there's a larger ring that involves marketing, fraud, security, on and on, that we're always engaging with them. But I'd say we kind of adhere to the three in the box or a three-legged stool kind of approach and make sure that those three, and we work in tandem. It's very much about collaboration, and we're not competing against each other. We're all on the same team. We all work for ATB, and so it's a win and help win, as opposed to there being some friction or dynamics between the different teams where, I mean, disagreements come up for sure, but we talk through it and like put the client at the center and say, what do we need to do here? What's the revenue growth opportunity? What's the best experience that we can provide? And then we come to the right decision based on that, but all together as a group.
Single team, the user is at the middle. Excellent, thank you. Rodolfo, how collaboration looks like at Helcim?
Oh, so product design and product management work very closely together. We created this like micro product teams of like, we pair PMs and PDs, product designers, together. They are responsible to carry out the initial research, UX research, and then the final design. And then that is passed over to development. So it's front end and back end. And so far it's working well. I believe in the future, this is my vision, having this split front end and back end be very net, because, and that, I don't mean that that should create silo, that's bad. I always like promote like collaborative processes, but if the implementation is like carried out separately, autonomously, you can focus more on your own function, so you can focus on becoming the best front-end developer, delivering the best experience, user experience, and at the same time, the same for the back-end. And as long as there is like a continuous touch point on the work being delivered and alignment, it could work. And so we are trying to move toward the split. It's going to be gradual, but I can see value into like focusing on these two aspects of the development separately, also to kind of like be more autonomous and remove dependencies from the backend team. But essentially is like that. So it's like product, so which is like design plus product management, carrying out like the ideation, of course, involving development at every phase for technical constraints and feasibility to understand if that thing is even possible to make. And then we're going to move like into development and like kind of keeping these phases separated for the actual development, but united for when it comes to touch points and alignment. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, it seems like there is quite a lot of unity, quite a lot of collaboration, a lot of communication between multiple stakeholders.
And by the way, we're not perfect, but we are trying our best.
Sounds pretty awesome anyway, so thank you so much. And well, if you don't mind, can I continue with more about how the team works like? You know, what are the values, the principles that drive your design process?
So since we provide payment solutions, so we're going after banks, the acquirers like TD, maybe ATP. Anyways, we're trying to the offering per se, it's quite complex. You have to provide a lot of functionality and services to merchants. So, and these merchants might not be like very tech savvy, right? So we're trying to simplify, and that's my sort of like Northern Star is like simplify the complexity and make things accessible. So improve the user experience so that it's more accessible, to reduce the cognitive load of all the flows. These are like sort of like those Northern Stars that we follow while we're doing like a redesign of an existing feature. That is one aspect that is more like specific of user experience. Then I give you my position being like a little bit in brand and in marketing and product, also like thinking about how can we inject more brand so that that specific like piece of software speaks for our values, and it looks like Helcim.
Excellent. So simplicity looks like Helcim. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much. And well, similar question for you, Chad. What are the values and principles that drive through your process inside the team?
We have some experience principles that we anchor all of our design decisions in. It's prevalent in all of our design reviews. We sort of hold them up as a litmus test to say, are we meeting these objectives? Will it express our brand properly in this way? And that's pretty much at the core of it, the experience principles and then our design system and patterns that we use. And we work in partnership with our brand team to make sure that we're always driving at where we're trying to get to. So.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And well, similar for you, Samantha. Values, principles?
So, every company kind of has their mission, they have their values, but for the user experience team, we have a set of what I would say UX principles is what we're calling them right now. It's something that we've recently kind of defined with our team, so really including our designers, writer, researcher in that process, and then us as UX leaders, then further distilling that and kind of bringing that forth as the characteristics that we want to see in the designs that we deliver. So one of them would be intentionality. Simplicity is, very, very important, but also, what are you putting in there? How are you putting it into your product? All of that, that's kind of something that we put at the forefront. The other would be, inclusivity. So one of our things that we often say is, we want to build a product for all Canadians, but really what does that mean? How do you do that? And what does that mean to us as a user experience practice? And then the others would be, honesty and unity and, I'm blanking now, I forget what the other one is, but unity is a big thing for us. So, we've been talking a lot about, consistency across your product, across your user experience journey, But the other thing is, you have all these different squads working on different products and different parts of your experience. How does that feel like one very cohesive product and, I guess, yeah, user experience in the end? So yeah, that's definitely something that we've kind of been trying to drive is our user experience principles. And then the other thing would be our UX process.
Fantastic, thank you so much. And well, honesty, that's a great value exactly there. In that sense, well, we're going to start talking about feedback, retroalimentation, retros, design critiques, so on. Honesty being a value. Yeah, how do you normally manage these processes inside your team?
Yeah, so there's a number of different ways that I would say we provide feedback. Our designers work within their squads, so they have their peers, they have their design lead, and that's kind of like day to day. You're sending things over Slack, you're kind of looking over at someone's computer, providing comments and just feedback on the go, as well as booking meetings with your product manager, maybe even your engineers to review your work. So what I would call that is more like organic feedback. That's kind of your day to day. And the other piece of that would kind of be a more formal setting in which we allow our designers and writers and researchers to bring their work forward. I call those UX jams. So we have those weekly where anyone on the user experience team can bring forward a project at any stage. So it could be in the planning stage, you could be wireframing. You could even be writing, your study plan if you're a researcher and bringing that forth and asking for feedback. So that's definitely one that we put a lot of emphasis on as well. And then the other part would be our UX retros. So our team, very similar to what you would do within a product team and kind of retros on the stuff that you're releasing. We gather once a month to actually review how we're doing as a team ourselves. So, what's working for us, it could be if, one designer is finding that a certain process that they're using with their product manager is working really well, bring that forth, kind of explaining that to the team, as well as what's not working well. And I would say that that's actually kind of the part that actually drives more change, because our designers tend to be quite honest, or everybody on our user experience team, and they're very proactive about things as well. So if something is not working, they're going to bring that forth. They're going to actually provide an idea and then kind of work together, especially with our leadership team within UX, to really kind of push that and make it a reality.
Fantastic. So being proactive, being honest, and yeah, inclusive. Thank you so much. Rodolfo, a similar question. How feedback looks like inside Helcim?
Okay, so we have weekly, so I'll speak for the product design team in the specific. We have weekly sort of like critiques with the whole team together. That's when we kind of like go through the projects that are currently ongoing and we give feedback. One challenge that we kind of like noticed is that when the feedback goes and impacts like a potential functionality, we kind of like stop there because there are no product managers at that point. So we don't want to kind of like change solutions or decisions that have been made previously. So, and we bring them up like in a second meeting or in another situation. We kind of like try to focus around like pure user experience. So given the fact that that solution is what's being designed and it's working, so we kind of like discuss what's the best, what's the most effective flow or solution or interaction. And that's what we discuss during those meetings. Then at the end of the week, we have like weekly retros, and I know the team is like, basically you look back and to the week and you discuss what went well, what didn't go well, what can be improved. And also I know that they bring up like some like design topics in general so that they can create a conversation around that. I think it's pretty cool. Because it's a nice way to end the week. And then so like Monday actually is like a big meeting, all design team together, so marketing and product, and we kind of go through like mainly like the schedule of the week. So it's not focused on feedback. Feedback is more like of a way to kind of like group all of us together and talk about what we did during the weekend, and then discuss what we're gonna do during the week.
Sounds like a lot of fun, especially Fridays. I wish we can make an open house with a design topics Fridays for everybody. Thank you so much for sharing. Chad, similar question.
Yeah, I'll cover two aspects, internal and external feedback. So internally, designers talk daily with each other. It's organic that way, sharing screen captures or whatever, looking for feedback. We do weekly reviews with the larger design team that's on the specific portfolio or product. And then we get together bi-weekly as our greater design team for reviews, and then really like we set aside a whole half day every quarter for everybody to get together and look at the designs and give feedback that way. And that's really more for us for consistency. The bi-weekly meetings, we talk about design challenges that we have across the board. And then externally, I mean, we're always open to feedback. All of our apps and websites have the opportunity to provide feedback, but we actively seek out feedback as well. We have a client panel where we pay clients for feedback of all sorts, and then we do usability testing, we do discovery research, where we're always engaging with the clients that way. And then we're very closely partnered up with our client care team and our service excellence team and our frontline staff, that we have a direct conduit with them where they're giving us feedback all the time. And of course, usual things like app store ratings and stuff. So we're sensing and scanning all the time, both internally and externally, looking for ways that we can be better. And feedback's really a part of the culture there, or at ATB. So that's how we kind of handle it.
Wow, it's very true. Feedback is part of the culture. And lack of feedback too, right? So, excellent. Thank you so much. And, well, excellent answers for everybody. Okay, well, now we're talking about, let's say, the everyday work, how do you maintain the same quality of work all across the products, all across the streams, all across the strategy? Yeah, how do you try to keep a consistency on the delightfulness and the usability that you're trying to bring to the world, Chad?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it's a challenge every day. We have such a big team, we have so many different products, things are moving so fast, trying to respond and react to the feedback that we're getting. And so it's a constant battle, and that's where we rely on those design reviews, having a design system. All of those things are what we try to utilize to try to be as consistent experience as possible, and we still got work to do, for sure.
Thank you so much. Rodolfo, same question.
Yeah, aligning teams and functions is very hard, and have the same, like a yardstick for quality is also very challenging, especially if we talk about like development and design. Usually designers are very into quality, and developers more into like speed and just push things out. One thing that we do is trying to create shared goals. So we try to structure our teams so that we can, they can own same shared outcomes. And cross-functional collaboration is very good at doing that. So we're trying to find this common ground that ties teams together, and then every team is going to deliver their best in their own function. And then we rely on a solid process framework. Like, scope is very important. Define scope clearly, the MVP or an iteration 1, 2, 3. So you know what you're going to design for and what you're not going to design for. And then the scope's visual output is essentially the mockups. Not only mockups, also annotations, interaction flows, everything that can be put together by the design team and the product management team to give a clear idea to the engineering team of what the final experience is going to be. So, like, if you do that as realistically as possible, that's gonna basically, you're gonna get that common, like, you're gonna get that alignment in terms of quality that you want to achieve, because you can point at concrete things rather than saying, oh, like, can we include this? Oh, but I thought this was like that. And kind of you remove the margin for errors and ambiguities. So we are trying to apply these two sort of approaches as strictly as possible to align these functions together.
Wow, thank you. I like that rigor, showing high quality, high fidelity, so you can compare. Fantastic.
Yeah, the point is, like, it's trying to, like, give a picture of what the final experience is going to be as realistically as possible, and so developers will follow.
Excellent.
Hopefully.
Getting there. Samantha?
Yeah, so before we even talk about mock-ups and like the final design, I guess one of the things that really helps us put quality products out there is defining the problem. So before you even define the scope, it's like, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? And the pillar within our user experience team that's really focused on that is our research team. So they're not just doing usability studies on designer or work that the designers are wanting to put out there. They're really kind of working with our business teams, our founders, to even think about what even is the product or feature that we want to build. What purpose does it serve? Why do we even want to do this as a business, and how does that balance with our user experience goals as well? So I would say that that's one aspect of it before we even get to design. When it comes to designing, there's our organic feedback. You're working with your design lead. There's always kind of someone there that's able to kind of provide some guidance, and then there's also your peers. And then, of course, our UX jams, which I mentioned. But any changes to our design system, all of that stuff is always approved by our lead designers. So that's one way that we ensure consistency and quality. And then all of our designs before they're handed off to engineers, very similarly, they have annotations. How does this function? Why is this there? What cases would this not be there? Very, very specific things. And before it's ever released and kind of put out into the hands of a user, we always do design reviews, especially for any large releases, whether that's like a feature or product. Our designers will always kind of take the time to go through every single platform. They'll note any kind of inconsistencies, between what's in their staging and what's in the design files in Figma. So that's one thing, and they have the ability to note things that would actually block a release. So what is absolutely crucial for our user experience, like this needs to be fixed before we can even put this in the hands of a user. So that's one aspect. And then there's also the aspect of ensuring that our brand experience is very consistent. We have a good quality of brand presence within our product too. Our designers are great, but they are product designers, so they're really focused on kind of functionality and user experience. So one thing that we've kind of done recently is actually we have brought over one of our art directors to work within user experience. So he's really focused on that delight piece, and working with our product designers to make sure that that's kind of consistent across all of our products, all of the different like areas that they're working within, as well as encouraging our designers to work with the creative team too.
That's a very interesting approach, and also I love the idea of having a full-on design review before a big release, so you don't get surprises.
Yeah.
Oh, I want that. Amazing. Well, also you mentioned something about, you had mentioned your design system quite often, Lee. Could you tell us more about how you normally maintain it and keep it fresh?
Yeah, so when we first built our design system, it wasn't really just a few components. We really looked at, very well-known design systems out there, like Material or Polaris, all of these ones that, you probably hear about whenever you read a blog about design online. And we really kind of looked at those. We looked at, kind of our roadmap for the next few years. And we're like, okay, well, there's going to be a whole bunch of different products that will require all of these different functions and features. So that's kind of, our push to really build out this fully fledged design system. Even though we didn't really have too much, within our product at the time. When it comes to like documentation, we do most of that within Figma. But that's something that we're also kind of looking to improve right now in terms of how we do that on the development side too. So you're building a design system very quickly, so of course things kind of slip through the cracks. So right now our designers and our developers are kind of working together to make sure that there's a lot of parity between the two. And then in terms of maintenance, a lot of our components kind of remain the same, I would say. The only time that we've really kind of done a major overhaul on our design system is when we implemented our brand. So, we built it at a time where we didn't really have much of a brand. We're really just focused on building the product. And so when we finally kind of came to that stage of, strategically building out like who Neo is, we then kind of had to apply some of those characteristics to our product design system as well. But now maintenance really just kind of looks like minor changes to components. But of course, those are always approved by design leads, like I mentioned before. And anything that's kind of net new usually kind of sparks a conversation on the design team. So, someone on one squad might want to add something to our design system, and that's kind of a conversation not just within their little area, it's really kind of across the design team. So why does this need to be added? Is this something that we should even add to the design system? What purpose does it serve? Is it sustainable to add this? And is it going to help us scale this design in any way?
Fantastic. Design system as a conversation. That's very inspiring. And yeah, well, Chad, would you like to tell us how do you normally manage your design system?
Yeah, it's so when I started at ATB 6 years ago, we didn't have a design system. We've really just released our official organization level design system in the last couple months. Up until this point, we've had what I would consider more program level or portfolio level design systems. So we have multiple design systems, and we're actually just in the process of unveiling a new brand. And so we're working through translating all these disparate design systems into one big new design system, but our code bases aren't there where they're not, even those aren't aligned. So it's a lot of a challenge for us right now. And we're looking at some of the bigger companies and the way that they do it, and we're trying to model that. I'd say right now, like the portfolio level design systems that we have both design and development components there, but our new one at this point is primarily a design tool so that we can be consistent with the things that we're producing and handing over to development, and then it's development's job to build those components for each individual property until we get to the point where we're unified across the board.
Unification. Wow, that's, I guess, one of those challenges that keep you excited early in the morning.
Yeah, it's definitely something that keeps me up at night, and like I said, it's been a thing that we've been trying to work at for 6 years now. So.
Wow. Well, I'm sure that we're going to see it happening very soon, and everything is going to go smoothly and easily. Rodolfo, design systems, how do they look like in Helcim?
Yeah, so currently we're using our second versions of our design system that powers our merchant-facing products and also our internal products. But apart from that, we're trying to look at the design system concept in a more holistic way, and probably because of my role, like being a little bit between marketing and product, we're trying to put together like a structure that we call it design system, but it's basically a group of elements and design tokens that powers both marketing and products. We have a branch off of the design system for the website. We have like a sort of like unique source of truth for our color scheme that we use, again, both in marketing and product. And essentially, we're trying to kind of reach this consistency in order to kind of like bring the brand on both disciplines. And so for us, like, design system means more than just a group of components that we use for our digital products. It literally defines design at Helcim. When it comes to digital products, apart from the component libraries, what we are trying to do now is like defining design patterns. So, essentially a group of components, like our design system is like follows the atomic design system approach. So we have atoms, molecules, and organisms and pages. And so we're trying to define these organisms that they can be used across the product experience based off of the event or scenarios. Like similar events will have similar components being used. It's kind of like a further layer like of like sort of like instructions on how you have to use the system, that which goes like beyond the single component, like input or button, and it informs how like the experience should behave at that given point.
Fantastic. It's amazing to think beyond the single component. It's just how that tiny part really implements or excites the rest of experience.
Yeah, because I mean, in general, design systems are not only like a group of components. There is more to it. You got to build that sort of like muscle memory for the merchant or the user. So like at any given situation, when you like an event occurs, you kind of like the user has to expect what they are gonna do after, and that's also related to design systems. Like it's building that familiarity and going beyond like the single component.
Wow, excellent. Yes. That's exactly what's seeing beyond and trying to, well, extrapolate what is going to be the impact of that small part. Amazing, thank you. Well, we have reached the part where this is where you are going to be involved, you know. This is the Q&A section. Also, I like to call it cardio, because I will need to go up and down. But yeah, if somebody has a question, please feel free to raise your hand. I will try to reach there as soon as I can, as safely as I can, because a fall from here looks very, very, very painful, right? So please, I'm going to take my time to get there, but anybody has questions? Man, from there? Anybody has questions on the line? No, okay, I'm going to get there.
Thank you. Great presentation, and I would like to ask you, how long does it take on average for your teams to go from research to prototyping?
Can I just say it depends? Yeah, it really does. Like, it's the old how long's a piece of string. So when we're designing a net new product, I mean, really for us, it can be anywhere from 6 months to 2 years, from initial discovery to delivery of the final product to our clients. But we're always working in iterative cycles, so smaller things. I mean, we can get stuff out the door in a sprint, which for us is 2 weeks, or a PI, which would be 3 sprints together, so like a month and a half kind of thing. And we're usually working ahead of the development team. We work in sort of 2 speeds. There's a constant support stream for the development, that things that we've already passed off to them. And then the discovery up front for which research and design working together with product to figure out what we need. And it really just depends on the size of the problem that we're looking at.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. Like for us, when we're building a net new product or a major feature, I would say it could take, a few months, it could take several months. It really kind of depends on, whether we kind of think we've really defined the problem or the scope of what we're trying to create. But, we go through all these different, research methodologies to kind of do so, and then from there, whatever time we have with it until we want to release this product is really what we have for design time, is the reality sometimes. But for smaller projects that do involve research and design, it could just be, a couple weeks. If we're looking to make improvements to the user experience and we've conducted, some small usability tests, or we're just trying to workshop and fine-tune some certain things within the experience, it really could be quite a short project.
Yeah, similar. It depends what we're trying to solve, from features to products. But generally speaking, we try to be quite lean, even on products. So rather than spending too much time into research, design, and development, and then understand that something went wrong, we're trying to stay lean in both of those phases to release something as soon as possible, and then measure feedback after and correct, rather than having a more waterfall approach of 6 months to a year. Yeah.
Any follow-up?
How do you manage design waste? Do you have a process for that when you have design that you no longer need or you want to recycle?
Yeah, I think I can speak to that. A lot of the times when our designers are designing these new features and products, they design for the blue sky vision. What's the best experience that they could provide for the user? And, sometimes those ideas have to get parked because, we just are looking to launch our minimum viable product. Sometimes those ideas actually, do kind of come to life. Sometimes, like you said, it becomes design waste. But we archive all of our designs, whether it be a wireframe or a high fidelity design. So designers can always kind of go back, look at, archived pages within Figma and kind of look at what they've done or what their peers have done and whether or not that idea actually applies to what they're trying to solve.
Can you clarify what you mean by design waste?
Yeah, I meant exactly that, what you explained, when you have designs that are not used or implemented, prototypes that are nice, but essentially are maybe too ambitious or the business needs changes. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not the best experience possible working on something that is not going to be used, but it's part of the game. I think that as long as the scope is well defined and we are all on the same page, there won't be design waste. Sometimes it happens, but you try to minimize it. So for sure not working for weeks and then throw everything. But again, I think as long as you are aligned, teams are aligned, scope is defined, and you know what you are designing for and what you are not designing for, and that's when I see design being wasted, is because you design too much, for example. Usually, it could happen, but it's if the work up front was done properly, it's not going to happen.
I think I'll take a stab at this, maybe from a slightly different perspective. Projects get paused and cut all the time, but I think there's really no waste in any of the design because we're always learning and growing and developing in some way, shape, or form. So I would never really look at it as waste. I think there is value that can be extracted from it some way. Where I get frustrated, and it's a challenge, is when we design the best user experience possible within the constraints that were given to us, and we end up having to cut corners through development and delivery. I got a whole rant about this, but it's we start designing a square and you start cutting corners, and if in the end you deliver a circle, well, did you really meet the objectives in what you're trying to do? And so that's where I would challenge the way that we're approaching how much we're investing our time and energy into it, and I hope that none of that is ever lost, wasted. Maybe a recycler.
Thank you. Any more quick questions? Okay, thank you, Paula.
Hello, my name is Paula, and I'm a UX researcher. And I was wondering if you ever had to manage remote teams when having to deal with projects, and especially remote teams that happen to be in different time zones, so they're not able to actually work together all the time or have time to discuss a lot of ideas or how to proceed with basically parts of the projects to get to the overall result.
No. I used to work with an illustrator that was like in a different time zone. He was in India, then he came here now. It's all good. We are trying to, at Helcim, we have a hybrid schedule. So we work like 3 days in the office and 2 from home to give that flexibility, like to be extra productive when you are at home, but still like having that in-person experience for meetings, brainstormings that I think it's super valuable, just because we want to avoid those challenges. I believe it's pretty challenging. I don't know if they have like an experience about that, but for us, we are always focusing on like hiring people in Calgary or talents who can relocate here.
Yeah, I don't have experience managing fully remote teams as well. I mean, other than kind of going through those short stints during lockdown. But in terms of time zones, we hire remote, or we hire locally as well. So we're an in-person kind of office culture. But we do have individuals that work remotely for us at first, and then immigrate here. So that's the one case where we've dealt with major differences in terms of time and working schedules. And I honestly just think that the answer is just hyper communication, like making sure that you're leaving, the work for them, with, proper, messages and comments about why you did certain things, what kind of challenges you may have had, what you want their feedback on. And I really just think that that's kind of the one thing that you can do to kind of help that challenge.
So we do work remotely across Canada, across the world. We try to, as much as possible, enforce sort of like most of the people work in Alberta in some way. And so there are some core hours that we try to stick to. The people that on my team that work in Vancouver or BC, they're just, they're getting a earlier start to their day and they can end earlier. The ones that we have out in Ontario, same thing, just the reverse. And it works for them. Like we've actually had a couple people that have come because they're like, well, I have a young family and so this allows me to do stuff at home with the kids and then I go and work. We've maintained the not quite full remote since COVID's over. It's not over. But we have people on our team, like I go into the office once a week-ish sometimes. We also have people on our team that they're gonna go on a vacation to India for 6 weeks or longer, and so they spend a portion of their vacation there and then they connect up and they work from there. That time zone's a little challenging for sure. But same thing, like we got people that go to Croatia, go to Brazil, go wherever. We have some full teams that are down in Brazil that we just, they work our time zone as much as possible. But there is flexibility built in. And sorry, one thing, hyper communication for sure. Like you won't succeed unless you do that.
Okay, we have one question coming this way.
Hi, my name is Steve. So I'm a film and television editor trying to transition into UX design. And so I'm speaking from the perspective of trying to get your first crack into the industry. What would be like a couple of, I guess, traits or things that stand out for you guys? I'm just kind of assuming that you're involved in the hiring process, but characteristics or traits that stand out for you guys in terms of hiring someone, and then maybe some things that you've seen that is kind of like a definite pass, like, you know, things that are sort of undesirable or whatever. So, yeah, if you guys can put any insight to that.
I think there's some key attributes for sure, like curiosity, compassion, different things like that. But at some point, you're going to need some of those foundational skills to build prototypes and solve client problems, kind of thing. So, I mean, we would never want to discount your life experience. I'm sure there's transferable skills there, but at the end of the day, there's definitely going to be some basic things that you'll need to work on. For that, there's lots of different upskilling options out there, boot camps that some post-secondaries offer, that, so you don't have to take like a full course, but you could get the basics. And then I think I
did a 9-month program with Career Foundry, so we did do projects.
Yeah, like there's lots of different things like that out there that you can do, and then basically you just got to shop yourself around, try and pick up any free gigs, volunteer gigs. It's one of the old things like, well, everybody wants to hire somebody with experience. Nobody wants to give anybody the experience. We have different programs at ATB where we work with some of the post-secondary educational institutions. I messed that up. But where we can get people in for, totally drawn a blank on what they call that now, like the internships. Yes, thank you. So there's different programs like that. I don't know of anything specific that we have for somebody that's already in their career, but we get lots of people that are looking to switch careers, whether it's a more transferable thing such as like industrial design or something like that, architecture, whatever. I think some of the core philosophies are still the same in that. You're designing something for somebody to use, but I can't speak to, you said you're a director of a television show? An editor? Okay. Yeah, I'm sure there's some things there, though, that would be transferable, so play to your strengths.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So just kind of getting out into the community. I feel like you're already doing it already. You're here. But yeah, just looking for different volunteer opportunities, I think kind of gets you networking with folks. And I think it's kind of a more organic way to kind of build relationships with people in the industry, or even other people that are trying to break in too, so you kind of have that support as well. I'm not going to really speak to like the technical skills that I typically look for in a designer, because I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. And then of course, when you get to more senior levels, designers tend to have their own specialties. But in terms of juniors, everybody kind of has the same foundational skills. The one thing that I always keep an eye out for is like adaptability. So when someone is like showing their work, are they able to kind of speak to how they maybe had to shift their approach if something like scope or resources changed? How did they kind of get over that hurdle? And it's not just within like a design project. It could even be the way that they kind of are just describing the way that they approached a problem. Did they come up with multiple solutions? All of that. So some of that is like creativity, some of it is problem solving and very like critical thinking, as well as adaptability. So those are kind of like some of the soft skills that I look for. And I guess you said like absolute no's. I think like one of mine is like closed-mindedness. So I've definitely interviewed candidates where they don't think that there's anything that they could have done better in their design project. And that's an immediate red flag for me, and that's actually probably my one absolute no when I'm in an interview, because one of the questions that you'll often get asked is, what do you think you could have done differently in this project? What did you learn? And if someone doesn't necessarily show the ability or self-awareness that there maybe was an opportunity, that's a red flag.
For us, so I think first of all, it's a great period for digital products, and so it's a great period for folks shifting to design in general. Like most of our The majority of our design team, product design team, is made of people who shifted careers from something else to design. And so they didn't necessarily have that formal education, and this is not something that I look into when I go through candidates. I look for raw talent, and I always say like the portfolio is what gets you the interview, and then the technical challenge is what gets you hired. Of course, like before everything for us is the culture. That's like the fundamental aspect. You can be as skilled and talented as possible, but if there are flags related with the culture, that for us it's a no. But having a strong portfolio definitely it allows you to get to that interview, like I jump on the portfolio right away, and having like a couple of case studies well defined, where we can see your design process, so how you articulate your thinking, your design thinking, and how you get to the solution you want to implement. And then for us, since product design for us means UI and UX, so UX and UI together, it's also how good your design sense is and how effective and like sort of like polished you are when you implement that design solution. That for us is like very important. But they don't need to be real projects. You can redesign existing platforms, popular platforms. I always say Amazon is a great way because it looks not very polished. Having like a strong portfolio where we can see the design process, where we can see your design sense. I'm not going to care about your previous education. Of course, if you have a degree in design, that's great, but is more what you can do, what you can demonstrate to us in your portfolio and during the interview process. That's going to get you the job.
Yeah, I think one thing to maybe add to that is like, you know, you mentioned that they don't need to be real projects. Of course, like when you're breaking into the industry, you don't have a company to be building a product for, but there's so many different design challenges that you can find online when you're trying to exercise your skills. So for pure UI, you know, there's like the daily UI challenge.
Yeah.
But then there's very like product design and kind of strategic thinking challenges and, you know, questions that people will post online as well. So not just redesigning a website, but also like, here's like some constraints, here are certain things that you have to kind of work with, really kind of mimicking what you would be doing in the real world. And so that a lot of the times is what I often see in more junior portfolios as well. And then the other part is like being very selective about what goes in your portfolio. I think one thing is when you see someone that's, you know, trying to get their first design job, you see a million things in their portfolio. Yes. You know, I see this with students, I see this with so many people that apply for, you know, more like early roles. And, you know, quality over quantity is like the best thing within a product design portfolio. So honestly, having like 1, 2, like that's kind of usually what I typically see within a product design portfolio when someone is applying or interviewing, and just kind of showing depth within that is far more important than showing like a million different things.
And to add on top of that, like that's very true, being selective and decide what you're gonna upload to your portfolio. I've seen portfolios that were amazing, but then there were those couple of projects that were quite poor, and those like projects' impact were actually bigger than those good projects that were there, right? So because it tells me that, okay, you want to go for quantity, which is the first red flag. The second red flag that it's probably even worse, which is like probably for you, there's no difference, right? For you, they are both good, right? And that tells me that you are not like understanding why one is better than the other one, so we have a bigger problem in that sense. So being very selective of just uploading, like putting on your portfolio the best quality work that you have and not aim for quantity. Yeah.
And sorry, just one follow-up because you had mentioned, in terms of trying to tune into a company's business culture, or sorry, department culture, like how do you kind of go about figuring that out, or seeing if there's a compatibility, or like just trying to identify with it? Like how do you go about figuring that out?
I always say like the biggest skill to have during an interview is trying to be spontaneous, trying to be like who you really are rather than being formal. Because if you are formal, it's like if you put a mask and I don't know what's gonna be, what there is behind. So there are cases where we do like one more interview or we go for a lunch. Like the point is trying to see who is behind. And that's because it's like it works for both of us. And we also are trying to be as genuine as possible, trying to show off our culture. But for us, in order to move forward, I don't necessarily need the most formal and professional candidate. I need to see like your character, like your personality, your real you, essentially. And when we can see that, there's no doubt, and we move forward. When we can't see that, it's always a little bit tricky.
I think you got to do your research. You got to ask around, get a sense of what's going on, Glassdoor, whatever, see what the company is all about, how they work, conversations like this. You got to find out the culture. Like that's part of the job for you to figure that out. And I think the other aspect in building on that is like interviews, I think, are a conversation, and like I'm interviewing you and you got to be interviewing me too, because it's not all about me. I'm looking for a fit for my team. You got to look for a fit that's right for you.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like if it's not kind of like a two-way street, like it's kind of oftentimes like a very difficult interview for me to conduct, because it's just like question, answer, and then they're just waiting for the next question. Whereas, I want to know what you want to know about our company, and oftentimes that actually gives me some insight into who you are, like what are you looking for? So Rodolfo mentioned character, but it's also like I'm trying to understand, whether or not this is a good fit for you, and not just the other way around.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Hi, my name is Ryan. I'm a user interface designer. And I know, Sam, you were saying that you guys use Figma a lot at Neo Financial, but I'd like to know, is there any other design tools that you guys like using to tie the UI, UX teams, everybody together? Yeah, so Figma is kind of like our polished design tool, I would say. Like we do like our high fidelity design within that. But one design tool that we use often is actually Whimsical. It's very similar to like other whiteboarding tools that you would see out there, like Miro, all that stuff. And the reason for that is like we put a lot of emphasis kind of on the structure of the design before we even get into like interaction or UI and all of that. So what's like the foundations or skeleton that is going to serve as the foundation for this nice interface. So Whimsical's a big one, Figma. Honestly, like Figma nowadays, like it does a lot of the things that we would have used multiple tools for in the past. You're able to prototype, you're able to, document and, build different variants, all of that. So those are kind of just the two major design tools that we really use.
So we use Figma as well, and we use FigGem during the sort of preliminary research when we put together the flows, the maps. Apart from those two, for the design system, so we have like the design system that is built on Figma is like the design system used by product designers. The front-end development team uses the same design system but mirrored on Storybook, which is another tool that we use to basically mirror the design system in code. Apart from that, GitLab, I guess, from the development team, from the development side, Asana is a project management tool, and Google Workspace, like company-wise, to manage chat, email, and that kind of stuff. We're trying to actually reduce to the minimum the number of tools that we're using, because it's easier for the company if you can reduce these tools, and we're trying to see exactly, okay, what's the biggest need, and we go for that. Maybe in the future we're going to have something for UX writing. I can see value in that, but like certainly we're trying to actually keep this, like the tooling, like quite contained.
Yeah, I guess that's maybe one tool that I would have missed within our like design suite, not getting into like project management and comms and all of that, is we actually use a tool called Writer. So it's like a very beefed up Grammarly. So our writer or our writers across the org are able to kind of input our style guide and our writing rules into this tool. And it plugs into like Google Docs and all of that, but it also is a plugin in Figma. So, designers can actually check and see if the content that is in their designs, if there's any, major things that they need to change, if it fits the Neo writing style, and then also, if there's anything that they maybe need to bring a writer into if they're not already working with them.
I'm on board with simplicity. We've switched to Figma primarily. My favorite design tool is still my pen and paper, whiteboard. We do use Axure still a little bit for like some heavy lifting and prototyping, but we've moved away from Sketch and the Creative Cloud and all those other options. So Figma is primarily the one, and FigJam a little bit.
And I guess all of us use Adobe as well, right? Photoshop, Illustrator. No? Okay. We do on the brand side.
Yeah, not our product design team. Our creative designers use that.
Excellent. I'm going to pass the question over here, just because it's like 2 minutes for me.
Hi, my name is Luis. I'm a developer, and my question is, how do you usually find the balance between design quality / complexity and development throughput?
I think it's almost similar answer, like simplicity. I'm usually when I'm reviewing stuff, I'm looking at what can we take away to make this easier, more simple. We love making things more complex than they need to be. So usually having that conversation with the development team when we're looking at stuff. But very early on, the technical capabilities or constraints are also part of the lines that we use to color within. So understanding that helps ensure that the designs that we create in the end are implementable. We're not, blue sky, like, oh, what if we did this? And then it's like, we don't have time for that. We don't have the technology for that. We don't have the whatever for that. So the more that we can be grounded within the objectives and the constraints and capabilities, the tighter that whole process can be.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with a lot of that. In terms of the trade-offs between, the intended design and what the engineers, can do, maybe it's a time constraint, maybe they need to take a shortcut for the time being. That's a conversation between, the two of them and their product manager, right? So that's coming up with the plan, I think, is an important thing when there's a discussion about cutting corners or maybe needing to trade off certain things. If it's needing to change the design, completely because we're not able to do something on the engineering side at all, then that's definitely you're going back to the drawing board. You have to dig into all those problems again and redefine those constraints, because that should be the box that you're working within from the beginning. And then there are some cases where designers might over-design. So, they often aim for simplicity and intentionality, but sometimes, they maybe design something and the developer is like, we could actually make this a lot more simple by doing this. The tech can do this. We don't need this, page or this step in the process for the user. then of course that's a win for, I guess, both of us.
Actually, similar to that, I think involving the development team in the creative process, so they're along for the ride. So when we get to that final, like, here's the final design, it's never final, that everybody understands why this is the best solution and knows that we're capable of delivering those.
The most important thing is building a design culture when it comes to the development team, because they usually advocate for what's easier or what's faster, which is totally legit. But there are times that we need to prioritize the experience, and if they understand why, everything is going to be easier. So as I said before, advocating for design, so like an engineer that advocates for the experience, a designer that advocates for like technical constraints and trade-offs is a good start. And then the process, like as long as we are aligned on what the final experience is going to be as realistically as possible through mockups, interactions, then that is like our common yardstick for quality. Obviously, it's more difficult than this. There are a lot of fights. There are a lot of like convincing situations that you're gonna go through. Again, everything is possible. The point is like how much time you put into developing that interaction. Is it worth it? I think product managers have a very important role into defining what's the right solution at any given point, so that they can truly own the product. But if like everyone knows and understands the importance of the other function, everything is gonna go smoother at the end.
Yeah.
And we have one question right here, just it's proximity.
Okay. Hi, thank you for being here. It's very important to me, I believe, for everybody here. So my question is, I'm very curious because I'm also transition from education to UX designer. And I'm curious to know how the process to hire someone new in your company works. So how many steps, how it will be, like, in general.
So just want to clarify the question, like, what are we looking for as a junior designer?
No, I mean, how many steps do you have, for example? So you have, the person who see your resume, and then you take a look like the portfolio, and then you have kind of an in-person interview, so how the steps works.
Okay, yeah, thank you. For us, we have a system where we take in resumes and ideally portfolios as well. We will determine, like, there's usually 2 or 3 people. It's like, hey, you're up, you got to review these. We shortlist them, and then set up interviews, and it sort of depends from there. Like, if somebody blows it out of the water, you might fast track through to the final interview. There's usually 2, if not 3. But otherwise, there might be a first vetting type of interview question, and then you go to a second round, and then depending on whether it's a contractor or full-time or what we're really looking for, would determine if there's like a third step, but we rarely go over a third step, because usually by the time we get to that point, they've found another job.
Yeah, we follow very similar, like just your typical process. So our recruitment team will kind of either find people, or they'll already review the people that have applied. They'll kind of shortlist a number of candidates for myself and other leaders to kind of look at. And then from there, we kind of move into our first interview. But I guess before all of that, they actually call the candidate, if they've shortlisted them, or, if we've kind of said, yes, like, I think this is someone that I might want to interview. So that's kind of their first touch point, I guess, with us. And then we move into an actual interview. Sometimes we do our technical interview first. Sometimes we do like a more, like, I guess, chat, or like, check for culture. So that could be, a conversation with myself or any other senior leader on the team. And then our technical interviews follow the structure of someone bringing forth 1 or 2 projects. So the case studies that we were talking about before, walking us through them, and then us asking some questions. We're having some discussion with the candidate about that. And then we give them plenty of time to ask questions about the company or the role or anything that they might be curious about. So that's kind of the technical interview and the culture interview. And then from there, usually we kind of move into like an offer stage. But sometimes we'll do an extra chat, very similar to what you were mentioning before. If you're kind of on the fence about a candidate, we might just, have another coffee chat or, invite them onto a call just to talk again.
Yeah, for us, very similar. We go through the candidate list. Managers or leads go personally through this list. It's very time consuming, but I think there's value because eventually these candidates might work with them. So once we select someone for an interview, that first interview is always a screening interview. It's 20, 30 minutes just to get to know each other. And that's when kind of we'll try to get a sense of the culture fit. If there is that fit, we're definitely going to move forward. At that point, we don't ask for technical questions. For product design, the second step is the technical challenge. We give a take-home design challenge. They have roughly from 5 to 7 days to send it back to us. And that's mainly to kind of assess their design sense, their process, the design process as well, design thinking. And if that goes well, then we're going to call them for a behavioral interview where we're going to ask, the common questions you might get during an interview, plus another sort of whiteboarding session, which is mainly to evaluate how you, what your design thinking is, how you kind of work around the problem to get to the solution. The point is not how brilliant the solution is, but essentially it's like a test how we would work together. So that's very important. So we have this kind of we try to keep it in one interview, so we don't want to have too many interviews. That's tiring for both. So we're dividing the last interview, the behavioral. The first part is general questions about career growth, conflict resolutions, and leadership, and those kind of things. And then the last part is this whiteboarding session.
Thank you so much. We have one question here, and maybe yours is the last one? Okay, perfect.
Hi, my name is Natalia, and I'm currently working as a UI designer and wanting to move into a product designer role eventually. I'm curious as to if you do user testing in your teams, and if so, where do you incorporate that in your design process?
Yeah, we definitely do user testing in our process. So I guess user testing, we're defining that more so as a usability test and less about the strategic UX research that we were mentioning before. Usability testing usually kind of comes in this medium fidelity stage. So we may have already done some wireframes, and then the designers have put together a somewhat polished design or mock-up within Figma, and that's kind of where we fit that usability testing in. From there, the designer and our researcher kind of work together with their PM to actually develop a study plan. So what are the main questions, that we want to ask? What's the purpose of this study and what's our objective? So that's kind of, I guess, the typical place that you would see usability testing. There are some, usability tests or maybe, I guess, research studies that we might do where we interact with, potential users or I guess users in general in the earlier stages, and that might be kind of trying to figure out someone's, I guess, mental model of something. So we might do something called a card sorting exercise or do some chats with them and kind of try to understand their problems. But the traditional, what we understand as usability testing, typically comes in the mid-5 stage.
Yeah, we do lots of usability testing, various stages, moderated, unmoderated, in person, completely anonymous online through usertesting.com. It really just kind of comes down to like, what are we trying to learn in this scenario? So we have some products where we're usability testing on a regular routine, others it's as needed. And then, of course, we have our feedback and stuff that we take in as well that guides some of that, definitely.
Yeah, we do usability testings as well. I would say, like, it depends also what we are implementing. If it's a feature or a product, definitely we do. If it's something small, I believe that as long as you follow the 10 heuristics of like user interface design, that's a good start to get things right. In terms of like reaching out to merchants, we have in marketing, we have customer marketing. They're constantly in touch with our merchants. We send surveys, and those help us to get like feedback about like the holistic sort of picture of our platform and how we're doing, and if there are like kind of like red flags we need to focus on. And from there, it's kind of like we work backwards and we kind of like focus on certain aspects that needs to be solved. And we start with user interviews, and then we develop and redesign that specific feature that maybe has some issues. And then from there, like we're going to do usability testing to see if like the problem has been solved.
Thank you so much. And last question.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nargiza. Thanks so much to the Platform Calgary for hosting this amazing event. Networking events like these are really valuable. And huge thanks to the speakers for willing to meet the community, which consists more of a junior professionals and people who are transferring from a different field like myself. So thank you so much for that, for sharing your professional experience, your internal processes, and even things that help you wake up in the morning and not sleep at night. So my question would be, is there a thing you think your teams are lacking? And if there is, do you have a solution for that? What would be a solution for that?
I can go first. The thing that we're missing the most right now is like a design operations person that can orchestrate all of our projects and clients and the feedback and making sure that the ship keeps running as smooth as it can, which is not really about designing experiences, but it's a gap that we have right now that we need to fill. And it's a hard one to fill because there's no direct value translation to our end clients or anything like that. So it's like, this is something that's really there to support our team, not the client, which there's always like extra, I don't know, red tape or whatever required to try to get that position a bit. Like headcount is a pretty coveted thing. And so when you have this type of position that's not gonna have direct impact that way, it becomes a bit of a battle. But that's my team.
Yeah, I think design operations is obviously super important. That's what I do. But I think it's not something that we're necessarily really suffering and lacking right now. But I think as our team grows, something that I foresee us needing is a design systems team. So right now our design system is kind of like, it's managed by our design leads. But of course they have all of their own work to, take care of as well, and they can't always be in tune with what's happening within all of the other teams around them. So I think a design system team that kind of works with all of the different squads and different product areas to understand their needs and to kind of maintain that is another kind of operational part of the team that we probably will need as we grow. Same.
Design system is is very important. We're trying to build a system, as I was saying, that powers both areas, marketing and product. We have a design ops person that is trying to build this, but the reality is that we have built a lot, and one of the struggles is maintaining everything that exists, plus bringing more products to life. And you are trying to do that while creating like this design system that should sort of like make everything coherent, and trying to juggle all of these aspects in the development, and also thinking about how you're going to scale in the future and build a system that allows you to scale efficiently. This is something that it's very tricky, and certainly we're working on.
Thank you so much. Excellent questions, everybody. I think you all did a wonderful job being interviewers, and I'm sure there is going to be more questions down the line. And my question for you is, what would be the best way to reach out to you?
I guess just LinkedIn. If you search me up, then that would probably be the best way.
Yeah, same for me, LinkedIn. Type my name. I'm the only one with the last name, so you're not gonna. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, LinkedIn, ditto.
There you go, LinkedIn. That's going to be our next sponsor. All right. Well, and also we have some opportunities to mention some call for talents, and just going to ask Chad, would you like to share some potential roles?
Yeah, sorry I didn't get you the information ahead of time.
No worries.
But yeah, we're looking for 2 to 3 contractors right now. Sorry for the new or less experienced people. We're looking for more intermediate and senior. We do have 1 full-time position, same thing. And then also we're looking for a writer for a contractor as well. So a couple roles.
Excellent. So if I get to see that online, I most likely put it on the Slack channel so you get to see or have a reference. But also ATV Careers is fairly available, so most likely you can reach out. And for Neo, I did a slide. I'm sorry, Chad, but yeah. Okay.
My own bad for not getting that out. So.
All right, Samantha, would you like to share?
Yeah, I guess same thing. Sorry to the more junior folks in the crowd. We're looking for another principal product designer on the team, a couple senior product designers as well, and then a UX writer. And then I thought I'd toss up some of the product roles that we're searching for as well. So looking for a senior PM. And I'm not sure if there's anyone in the crowd, but you might know somebody who might want to be our head of product here in Calgary. So that role is also up too.
You made me think of, we need a researcher as well. If we're hitting other areas.
Yeah, and we are looking for 2 product designers and 2 product designers and also 1 product manager that we're going to add to the product team.
All right. Well, if you're in the market or you know somebody or at some point you feel inspired, and just reach out to them. And maybe this conversation actually opened quite a lot of the doors for you. So hopefully pretty soon we're going to get some news on LinkedIn. Once again, people changing roles, and ATV, Helcim, or Neo is going to be listed. Well, we are going to be on the part of telling you what is going to be happening next from the Calgary UX event. This Wednesday, we are going to have our final session with Adobe XD. And Jill Da Silva, our amazing CEO and founder of Digital Karma, is going to be our instructor. This is a MMA, Ask Me Anything. And she's going to go through quite a lot of the processes that most likely she already shared, but also professional advice, and as some of you have some questions, how to get into the market. So I hope we can get to see you. And also, this is going to be our draw for the Creative Cloud license. It's going to be 1 year. It's around $1,000 of value, guys. So we're only asking for people to submit 3 screens if you're already doing the project. And if you don't, you have 1 day to figure it out. So reach out, and we are going to try to get everything done. This is just design, right? Like you can get it done in 1 day. Why not, right? All right. So also, as you can see, we have Inclusivity Calgary down there, and this is a amazing collaboration between Calgary UX and Civic Tech YC. And if you don't know what Inclusivity Calgary does, we do inclusive usability testing. And we are mainly focused on trying to bring new voices to the tech industry. So the products and services that we enjoy are actually meant for everybody. And yeah, we don't discriminate based on experience or not. Actually the contrary, quite a lot of what we do is meant to provide user research experience, specifically on inclusion, on equity, on diversity. So we'll have all those tools and processes that most likely will help us down the line to implement that either in our own projects or in different industries. So please reach out over there. And hey, last week we won an award, so that's like, yeah, wow, awesome, no? But, those guys over there, and we have some of the team over here too, and yeah, it's more of a collaboration, more of a teamwork, and they're amazing. So I would invite you to ask what is that about. If you are willing to volunteer or support in any way or shape or form, we are willing to help, because, hey, yeah, this is a big challenge, and I guess everybody's in a position to help, right? And if this helps. All right, let's go analog. All right, well, as you may know, we have quite a lot of places where you can reach us. We are on our website, on our Meetup, on Slack, and all of these have been quite relevant to our during COVID, but still nowadays when actually it's cold or yeah, anything can happen. This is a really one fantastic place to keep in touch with the community. And as I mentioned before, yeah, everybody's invited, right? So you don't have to be in Calgary, you don't have to be a designer, you don't have to even, let's say, share similar experiences. You are all welcome and you are all amazing for that, right? And thank you. This is a big thank you to Rodolfo, big thank you to Samantha, big thank you to Chad, big thank you to all of you. Well, what can I say? Yeah, this is the part where everybody can ask each other's names, and if you don't have a name tag, there is also an opportunity to get one there. Also, yeah, well, thank you so much for Samantha, Rodolfo, and Chad for staying that long. The conversation has been amazing, and really I hope we can get you anytime sooner for our next Calgary UX event.
Thank you. It was great
Thank you
being
very
here.
much. Thanks.
Wonderful. And yeah, I guess the rest of platform is very quiet. So we are totally free to hang around for maybe another half hour, 45 minutes, until somebody releases the dogs. No, I'm joking. Until somebody kindly invite us to go somewhere with, let's say, nicer, yeah, nicer seats. All right. Thank you so much. Take care. Have a good night.